Schumer says that this is going to come back up this week. He changed his vote so that he could reintroduce it this week. I don't know if they're going to be able to figure out some deal with Republicans or if they're going to be sufficiently shamed by this whole experience. I wouldn't count on it to be able to vote the correct way. But just to show you, how bad things are, here's Pat Toomey being pressed by Jake Tapper, who is, really taking a hard line with him about why exactly they are holding up this funding. Let's take a listen.
What do you say to those who find it impossible to believe that of all the multi-trillions of dollars in our federal budget, this is where you and Republicans decided to take a stand?
Here's what you need to keep in mind, Jake. First of all, this is the oldest trick in Washington. People take a sympathetic group of Americans, and it could be children with an illness, it could be victims of crime, it could be veterans who've been exposed to toxic chemicals, craft a bill to address their problems, and then sneak in something completely unrelated that they know could never pass on its own and dare Republicans to do anything about it because they know they'll unleash their allies in the media and maybe a pseudo-celebrity to make up false accusations to try to get us to just swallow what shouldn't be there. That's what's happening here, Jake.
But this,
my
this
efforts,
was
my
in
Republican
the bill.
colleagues.
This was in the bill that passed the Senate last month.
Yeah, and we were promised that we'd have an opportunity to offer an amendment to change this. And then, of course, that was reneged on. So people hadn't had a chance to be socialized about this. Let me be very clear. The Republicans are not opposed to any of the substance of the PACT Act. My honest Democratic colleagues will fully acknowledge that my objection, and if I get my way, I get my change, it will not change by 1 penny any spending on any veterans program. What I'm trying to do is change a government accounting methodology that is designed to allow our Democratic colleagues to go on an unrelated $400 billion spending spree that has nothing to do with veterans and that won't be in the veteran space. So that's what I'm trying to do. They could have agreed to this a month ago, and this bill would sail through at any point in time. Look, we can resolve this with an amendment vote.
Right.
But some of the Democrats don't even want to have an amendment vote.
I mean, he goes on to point out that that has been a part of the bill from the very beginning, that this whole promise and all of that isn't necessary, was never really there. Pat Toomey's objections. Also, this is the other part. Why do you have to attack the character of Jon Stewart as a quote-unquote pseudo-celebrity? As you just pointed out, he shredded Dennis McDonough in the Biden administration whenever he needed to. I think all of us have the confidence that he would shred anybody who is standing up in this vote. And we've already laid out right now the so-called government accounting method, which would only really make it harder for a lot of these vets to have to continue to coming before Congress to justify what Congress and many others have called a so-called illness. Why don't we just make it so that they don't have to do so? This is a very good view into Senate procedure brain, into the fake objections that people can reconcile themselves up for political purposes. And look, I mean, to be honest, is this really going to pay a major political price? Probably not. Yeah. Most people will we'll just move past it. But that's why we're spending so much time on it. This is a very good view into how all broken this is. And you have to, once again, give credit to Stewart, so-called pseudo-celebrity. I mean, come on, give me a break. I mean, it was one of the most popular, at least at that time, TV shows in the political news space in the 2000s. And of course, remains a household name as it is today. So denigrating his character and insinuating that this is some pork barrel, is insane. I mean, we've seen many of those things sail through Congress. This is not it. And it only reveals how much of an extremist that Pat Toomey is. Yeah. That he finds one in.
Everything he said there was so incredibly misleading.
Yeah.
I mean, again, none of this money is for some boondoggle random other thing. It's all funding for these veterans who are suffering. And I really think I like how Tapper frames it too of this is where you're going to draw the line.
Yeah,
the spending, the tens of billions to Ukraine. And all
what about $44 billion in Ukraine? Right.
Sails through.
Right.
No problem. No accountability. We don't need to know about those boondoggles, even though we're getting warnings about, we're worried about weapons being traded on the black market now. No, we don't need any accountability or any questioning about that. This is the place where you're ultimately going to draw the line. Cable news is ripping us apart, dividing the country, making it impossible to function as a society, and making it impossible to know just what is true and what is false. But the good news is they are failing and they know it.
That is why we're building something new, a new mainstream, a healthier one, something more trustworthy, something that we are going to need in one of the most pivotal times in American history. We are building up here for the midterms, for the upcoming presidential election, but we need your help. So if you can help us out by becoming a premium member today at breakingpoints.com, we're trying to change America for the better and the entire world.
So what are you waiting for, guys? Go to breakingpoints.com and sign up and help us build a new mainstream.